Good evening. Happy Saturday, everyone. Welcome to Bramall Lane, which is an impressive stadium. It's a difficult place to come. so the cliche would go. And it is. And there are reasons for that. One is the fans in here are they make it incredibly difficult. Like, they are on you. They are on the opposition. They are on the referee. They are on it all. And this is how today finished. It finished in a 2-2 draw. Norwich were 2-0 up at half time, and then they drew 2-2. They could have won the game with a penalty late on. They could have also lost the game with some late chances to the home side. But the point was, and Dean Smith made it as well, the supporters were desperate to get involved, and they were. It's one of those places where you watch the referee and they don't know what to do. They just don't know what to do. They're sort of trying to give decisions, but they're also trying to ignore what's going on around them. It's incredibly difficult. It's incredibly noisy. Every time I come here, it's just it's remarkable, and it's probably the stadium version of a player like Grant Holt. If it's with you and it's part of what you're doing, then you absolutely love it because it's great and you're part of it. If you're coming up against it, it's really horrible and hard. And you have to say, with what Sheffield United have here, given there were more than 30,000 people in here, or certainly that was the attendance anyway, they should recover their current slump and be a real issue for anyone. I mean, imagine coming here in the playoffs. Oh, so yeah. It is just one of those remarkable places in English football, and there's a lot to really like about it, even when it's really hard. Anyway, yes, it finished 2-2, and this is really interesting. So I'm guessing a lot of you guys will be sitting there thinking, "Oh, this is rubbish," and all this sort of stuff. And I think where I'm sat is that it's kind of a realization. So let's get to grips here. This Norwich team is not going to win this division. I think we can now say, not that I'm writing them off, I just don't think Norwich have got enough to go and win the division with what they're doing and the mistakes they're making. And they just don't look like they don't look like a side that is going to go on and do that now. I don't think they don't have the control in games they need at this level. They don't grasp things well enough with control, and they're not tight enough at the back. So use today as this team needs to be in the promotion mix come the end of the season. So it's a top 6 finish. That is a reduction in expectation. But it's a realism for me. Lots of people I saw sort of saying how at half time, this is great. This is a really good performance. Norwich look like they know what they're doing. It's a really good plan. It's working. It's great. Dean Smith himself said that the game plan was working perfectly for 60 minutes. I mean, I'm not sure. When goals happen in a game, it makes you look like you know exactly what you're doing and it's all working perfectly. But if we're honest, the first goal was an absolute howler from, I think it was John Egan's back pass. I haven't really been able to figure it out, but I think it was John Egan's back pass. Adam Davies making his home debut. His clearance is charged down by Teemu Pukki. Wonderful work from Teemu Pukki. That is an awful goal to concede, as we know, because we've seen Norwich do it themselves. That was really early in the game. They're 2-0 up after 16 minutes because, again, I mean, it's a big punt forward from Max Aarons. It's not much more. And Teemu is really strong against Anel Ahmedhodzic. I think I've got that right. Who is a really highly rated player. I know that I was a bit disappointed with him today, actually, because I've heard a lot of good things. But, really outmuscled, really poor defending. It's good from Teemu. He's strong and he's in behind, and also he gets a shot on target. But again, Davies probably should be saving the shot. So there's the strength of the defending, which wasn't great, and then the shot, which the keeper probably should have saved, I thought. So, Norwich are 2-0 up, but it's not through any great plan. It's literally just sort of help themselves. And again, I'm not one. I'm trying to be fair here. So I know Norwich did do a lot of good things. They created a lot of good chances, actually, up until probably about 55 minutes. A really good one early in the second half. And if the game gets to 3-0, it's dead. But they didn't manage that. And although they had good moments in the first half, especially, and you're thinking just take one of these. And they played some really bright football once they were 2-0 up. Sheffield United were abysmal in the first half. The amount of times they made wretched decisions, they played poor passes, they just passed the ball out of place at times. They looked absolutely ravaged by their current form and all over the place. And Ndai's introduction at half-time and a sort of slight switch in shape, and they just looked a bit more potent, and they got themselves some additional momentum. And although Norwich still had chances on the break, I didn't really feel like Norwich were... Well, they certainly never really felt like they were in control of what was going on. And in fact, that control became more and more ragged as the second half went on, especially. But as I said, it was just this element that they'd been presented, and obviously, again, I'm not trying to take it away from Teemu because he'd worked really hard, but it takes two teams in each game, and Sheffield United were kind of partially architects for finding themselves 2-0 down, as much as Norwich's attempts had led them there. So there was no great plan of that working out. And the problem with that is that the game then went the other way because Sheffield United obviously got better. I didn't actually think Norwich's performance particularly got much worse. I thought they still carried a threat on the break, but Sheffield United just upped their level, and Norwich couldn't really cope with that intensity or the atmosphere around this place, and they just couldn't really hold out. The two goals they conceded were both really poor from a defensive organisation point of view. Now, when I tweeted, the first goal goes in, I think it was Ben Osborne. He looks really free, and I'm like, where is Max Aarons? And it's probably a bit harsh on Max because he's literally had to deal with Billy Sharp coming in. So he's sort of preoccupied with that. So it's not really the fact that Max isn't there, but he's obviously been dragged into defending Billy Sharp, which is kind of questionable from your fullback. Should he really be in that position? Because ultimately, that is where the problem then manifests, because you haven't got enough wider defenders. So, it just isn't the defensive organisation to deal with a player who's either come in marking someone, because don't forget, Billy Sharp's playing centrally. So he should be passed on, I'm guessing. And that just leaves Norwich open to a free shot that gets Sheffield United back in the game. And you have to say, as soon as that situation happens, it's going to be very difficult. And then the second one comes after Dimi Nulis is taken off, and Tony Springett comes on to play at left back, which, he's played once at left back all season in a cup game and didn't look great there. I know it's needs must and everything because Kenny McLean is suspended. But Ben Gibson is caught with McBurney on his shoulder, but also gets no help from Tony, who sort of just runs in after it. And it's Grant Hanley mentioned about stopping the actual initial ball in and diagonal, which is a fair point, but you kind of have any defensive team has to be able to deal with both. And so you should stop it at source, but also from that point on is just all wrong. And it was pretty ugly then. And in fairness, McBurney probably should have won the game, but it was a wonderful save from Angus Gunn. Ollie McBurney did give him a chance with the header just being at his feet, but there we were. And Norwich had a penalty, which was right in terms of the foul. It just wasn't very well taken by Teemu, and Adam Davies went the right way and was able to sort of make up for his earlier misdemeanor, if you like. And a draw was probably a fair result. Probably on the balance of play, because both sides had some pretty good chances, had chances to either win the game or make sure they were in total control of it. And in the end, we just got a really random, ragged, chaotic affair at times. There was a lot of motion. Both managers had a little chat with each other in the dugouts. Dimi Nulis felt he was sort of hacked down by Billy Sharp at one point, and Grant Hanley kicked Billy Sharp when he was on the floor at another point. Marcelino Nunez was basically called a cheat when he came off, and he waved either to those supporters calling him a cheat or to the Norwich director's box, not sure which. It was just so many bookings around the place, and just as I said, what you kind of get. Now, in fairness, Norwich were reasonably coherent in what they were doing, and they kind of stood up to it mostly, and they didn't shy away from anything, and they didn't really look short confidence. I thought Todd Cantwell was pretty good in the starting lineup, and as I said, Isaac Hayden, his first start for the club, did well while he had the legs, and then he tired. I thought Dimi Yanulis, given he was properly thrown in at the deep end with minimal action, was really good, and he won't have had many games like that in English football. I bet he loved it. So there were some positive points, which is why I'm not sitting here going, "Oh my God, it's a disgrace." Whatever, blah blah blah. It's not. It's just this is, I think, the reality. Norwich, when you're seeing them come up against the better teams in the division, and we're obviously going to see a very, very good example of that on Tuesday night at Burnley, they are meeting their match, and that is where Norwich are. It is probably in pre-season and before the season where I thought they might be, and that's sort of coming through. So really disappointing for Norwich to throw it away, but I just even when Norwich were 2 up, never felt they had the composure or control of the game to think, well, this is a great opportunity to win it. I was really quite happy that they went in at 2-0 at half time, to be honest, and then it sort of unravelled. So it is what it is here. Turf Moor won't be the same. It'll be a very different challenge, and Norwich are going to have to show up in a different way. But they are going to have to show up, because if they don't, that's going to be 5 games without a win. But more than that, it's going to emphasize again that the top teams in the division are causing them real problems, and probably in enough volume for this to be an issue with Norwich trying to achieve what they want to do. Dean Smith was adamant on Friday, Norwich will go up. Yeah, that's basically what he said. He's convinced they will be up there for automatic promotion, or that they will go up. So it's a bold statement. We'll see how it all pans out. Right, I'm done. It's quite late. I better get on. I hope that covers off everything. Quite an interesting game. Good to see Tony Springer come on. It's obviously good for him to be back. He's had a few injury issues, got a new contract as well. Good for him. I don't know if he's really at a level where he should be playing in this team at the moment. We'll see how he proves himself. And hopefully everyone comes through it, because that was a lot being asked of Yanulis and Hayden today. So we shall see. But there we go. Life in the Championship. It was ever thus. Have a lovely evening. Take care of yourselves. I will be back, heading back to Norwich now. On the Ball podcast will be on Monday night, and I'll be at Turf Moor on Tuesday. So I look forward to both of those occasions. In the meantime, have lots of fun, eat cake, and be merry. Goodbye.